So then Faustin would have potentially, I'll ask one more question, and this is for Alan. Let me see now. What would you say a value added compared to other similar tools? So question number 5, if you're thinking of other participatory tools, what would be your main recommendation for the successful implementation of using this innovative tool for monitoring restoration?
Well, the value added by citizen observatories is that it complements remote sensing, whether it's satellites or drones or whatever. It gives a whole new source of data and information to those who want to monitor what is happening with forest degradation, forest and landscape restoration. If participants want any more details on the complementarity, I cover this in the paper that I've written, and which I think is going to be made available as part of the background materials for the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Alan. Yes, we'll share this through the D Group platform library, and also I can try to uploading it here to the platform after this. I would have
can I answer one other question while I'm on? It's about it's from Roberta, and she was asking about software for websites.
Yes, please go ahead.
This is a very interesting question, Roberta. As I mentioned in my talk, citizen observatories are really new things, and each of the pilot observatories that I mentioned in my talk had to devise much of their own software. And I'm sure that if you were to contact the observatory that most corresponds to your own particular needs, they would be keen to see if they could share their website software with you to save in having to invent the wheel.
Okay, thanks. Let me now ask another question, and this time I would like to ask it to Catalina. Catalina, from your point of view, which kind of capacity is most critically needed for monitoring with innovative tools?
So thank you, Faustine. I think that word and that point on capacities is one that I've heard within all the presentations, and there is indeed an important role at different levels that we need to fill, both through the international organizations, but also civil society movements, academia, different practitioners in terms of scaling up and addressing some of these gaps. One key issue that I've seen is in this context, the importance of trying to connect different efforts that are happening at different scales and showing the complementarity that this could draw to different processes, whether they be objectives that have been already defined at the national level, whether they be community-based priorities. So this need to help map and connect efforts is very important, and in terms specifically in capacity building. Another aspect that I feel is going to be very critical is institutional capacities and how to set the governance frameworks to build within the structures that exist the connections with these more non-state actors and new efforts that are emerging. And I think the landscape is changing as we speak, so the governance within that needs to also adapt. In addition, I think that the capacity should be looking at how to manage information overloads. So we will get a rise of different data and different technologies, but how do we manage that? How do we ensure that what we are promoting in our websites and in our platforms are the right, accountable, and kind of verified. In other words, to ensure that the quality control is associated to that information. And of course, this brings me to the point that we need to be mindful of the risks in these new endeavors and these new developments, given what we see already in the news with information manipulation and with interpretation of data that could provide a false indication of the expectations that we're looking for and trying to solve. So I think I will leave it with that as a general overview of the type of capacity and understanding that we need to look into as we continue to foster and support this type of instruments and also directions in the context of forest landscape restoration. Thank you.
Thanks, Catalina. So just continuing on that same line of thoughts, you highlighted the need to connect across different tools and efforts. And so now I would like to ask to Rakan, in his views, what could be an ideal set of monitoring tools to be combined at project level?
Right. So, I mean, to me, using drones shouldn't actually replace the way I approach my research. Is the drones will actually act as a means to facilitate additional data collection rather than to replace actual field data collection. So what it does is it streamlines some of the more tedious or slower work and allows you to collect additional data on parameters that you can't collect, and then frees you up to do much more point-specific work in the field. So I think they complement each other, and it just starts opening up additional ways of asking questions and pinpointing sort of maximizing your time in the field in terms of data collection. So, you know, it's going to be really dependent on what a particular project is to come up with what an ideal set of tools are. But I think that's the general advantage of having something like a drone in your backpack as part of your field kit, basically.
Thanks, Rakan. And so now I would like to get back to Catalina. Catalina, you mentioned the role of a variety of stakeholders. You mentioned in particular non-state actors. So I would like to ask you, according to you, what's the role of local people in monitoring, and especially when using such innovative and knowledge-intensive tools?
Thank you, Faustine. Well, in principle, and definitely from our experience in the Convention on Biological Diversity, the information gathered and the role of local communities and local actors, including non-state actors, is critical. It's very important. We see it already in some of the efforts that are underway through the role of indigenous people and local communities. And that I will inform the audience that since 3 years, there has been the first edition of the Local Biodiversity Outlook, which is basically a publication that feeds and informs on the information collected by local communities. And this is a way to present what is being perceived by local people. It is information that is gathered by expert opinion and, of course, discussions and different sources of information all captured in that report. But it does demonstrate the value and importance that this type of information provides to complement other efforts that are part of the convention. So as an example to answer your question, I would say that this is something very important, and this is something we need to explore. and to be able to tap into the existing processes that we're facilitating, and to look at the type of governance models that exist to help promote and encourage good outlets and good channels for this type of collaboration to grow and to examine where potential interest lies. Thank you.